The Lagos rain fell like bullets against the windshield as Adunni navigated her way home through the flooded streets of Victoria Island. As a senior operations manager at one of Nigeria's leading banks, she was used to working late, but tonight felt different. The storm was fierce, and the roads were nearly impassable. As she carefully maneuvered around a particularly deep pothole, her headlights caught something that made her slam on the brakes. There, beside an overflowing drainage canal, lay a small figure, a teenage boy, unconscious and barely breathing. His clothes were soaked through, and his thin frame shook violently from the cold rain. "Jesus!" Adunni gasped, her heart racing as she pulled over and rushed out into the downpour. The boy couldn't have been more than 14 years old. His lips were cracked and pale, his eyes barely fluttering open. Every shallow breath seemed like it might be his last. Without hesitation, Adunni lifted his fragile body, shocked by how light he was, as if life itself was slipping away, and carried him to her Toyota Camry. The boy's name was Emeka. At just 14, he had already endured more pain than most adults could imagine. He had been raised by his grandmother in the slums of Mushin after his parents died in a building collapse when he was 7. His grandmother, Mama Ngozi, worked as a street food vendor, selling akara and bread to barely make ends meet, but she loved Emeka with all her heart. 3 months earlier, tragedy had struck again. Mama Ngozi suffered a heart attack while walking home from a market. The neighbors found her collapsed on the dusty road, her basket of tomatoes scattered around her lifeless body. After her burial, Mama Ngozi's relatives descended like vultures, taking her small kiosk, her cooking pots, and even the tiny room they had called home. They abandoned 14-year-old Emeka to fend for himself on the unforgiving streets of Lagos. For months, Emeka had wandered from Mushin to Ikeja, sleeping under bridge overpasses and begging for scraps of food. He survived on pure determination and the occasional kindness of strangers. But as the rainy season intensified, he became desperately ill. Fever consumed his small body, and hunger weakened him beyond measure. On that stormy night, weak and delirious, he had collapsed beside the drainage canal in Victoria Island, far from the familiar chaos of Mushin. It was there that Adunni found him moments away from death. At Lagos University Teaching Hospital, doctors rushed Emeka into emergency care. Adunni sat in the waiting room for hours, her designer clothes still damp from the rain, her hands trembling as she prayed for the boy's survival. She didn't know his name, didn't know his story, but something deep in her spirit told her she couldn't walk away. When Dr. Okafor finally emerged from the emergency ward, his expression was grave. "This boy would not have survived another hour," he told Adunni, shaking his head in amazement. "Severe malnutrition, pneumonia, and dehydration. You saved his life." Tears filled Adunni's eyes. When Emeka finally regained consciousness 3 days later, he whispered his name and told her about Mama Ngozi. His voice was so weak she had to lean close to hear him, but his eyes, though tired, held a spark of gratitude that touched her soul. From that moment, Adunni made a decision that shocked everyone who knew her. Instead of handing Emeka over to social services or an orphanage, she took him home. Despite her own challenges as a 32-year-old single woman building her banking career, she decided to raise a stranger's child as her own younger brother. But her kindness came with a heavy price. At first, her colleagues at the bank whispered behind her back during lunch breaks. Her friends questioned her sanity, saying she was ruining her chances of finding a husband by taking on someone else's burden. "Adunni, you're wasting your life on a street child who isn't even your blood," her best friend Kemi warned her. What will people think? But the worst opposition came from her own family. Her mother, Mrs. Adebayo, was furious. "This boy will bring bad luck to our family," she declared during a heated family meeting. "Street children are dangerous. They steal, they lie, they carry diseases. Send him away before he destroys your future." Adunni's boyfriend, Tund, a successful lawyer she had been dating for 2 years, became increasingly hostile toward Emeka. He saw the boy as an obstacle to their relationship and future marriage plans. The tension in Adunni's apartment grew unbearable as Tund's jealousy and resentment toward Emeka intensified. One evening, while Emeka was recovering from a bout of malaria, Tund sat Adunni down in their living room. His words were cold and threatening. "If you don't send that boy away, I will make sure he never bothers us again. I have connections. One phone call, and he could disappear permanently." Adunni stared at him in horror, unable to believe that the man she had planned to marry was threatening to harm a helpless child. "You're talking about hurting a 14-year-old boy who has already lost everything," she whispered. "I'm talking about protecting our future." Tund replied without emotion. "Choose him, or choose me. You can't have both." The hatred in their home grew more toxic each day. Tund began making phone calls to questionable contacts, and Emeka, despite his youth, sensed the danger surrounding him. One night, hiding in the corridor outside Adunni's bedroom, Emeka overheard a chilling conversation between Tund and an unknown man on the phone. The plan was clear and terrifying. If Adunni refused to abandon Emeka, the boy would be quietly eliminated before the week ended. They discussed it as casually as planning a business meeting. That night, Emeka lay awake, tears streaming down his face. He realized his presence was destroying the life of the woman who had saved him. Adunni had risked everything for him, but he couldn't be the reason for her pain and danger. At 3 a.m., while the Lagos night was still and quiet, Emeka made the most difficult decision of his young life. Could you abandon the person you love to save their life? Emeka faces an impossible choice that will break your heart. Have you ever had to sacrifice your own happiness for someone else's safety? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Smash that like button if this story is already giving you chills. And don't forget to subscribe, because next chapter reveals Emeka's heart-wrenching decision that changes everything. Hit that notification bell. You won't want to miss what happens when love meets impossible sacrifice. At exactly 3:47 a.m., Emeka quietly rose from his small mattress in the corner of Adunni's living room. The Lagos night was humid and still, broken only by the distant sound of generators humming in neighboring compounds and the occasional bark of street dogs. He owned nothing except the clothes Adunni had bought him, and a small wooden cross that had belonged to Mama Ngozi. With trembling hands, he took a piece of paper from Adunni's desk and began writing a letter that would shatter her heart. "My dear sister Adunni, thank you for giving me life when death was calling my name. Thank you for loving me when the whole world had forgotten I existed. I am not your blood, but you made me family in a way I never thought possible. I will carry your kindness in my heart forever. Please forgive me for leaving like a thief in the night. I cannot be the reason you lose your happiness, your future, or your safety. I heard everything. I know what they are planning. I would rather die on the streets than see harm come to you because of me. I will survive somehow. I will find my way. And one day, I pray God will make you proud of the boy you rescued from that drainage canal. With all my love and gratitude, your brother Emeka." He placed the letter carefully inside Adunni's work handbag, the leather briefcase she carried to the bank every day, knowing she would find hours later. Then, with tears blurring his vision, he slipped out of the apartment and into the pre-dawn darkness of Lagos. When Adunni discovered the letter at 9 a.m. during a client meeting at the bank, her hands trembled so violently that her colleagues rushed to her aid. The words of love and farewell pierced her heart like daggers. She immediately left work, drove frantically through Lagos traffic, searching every street corner, every bridge, every place where homeless children might hide. But Emeka was gone. Meanwhile, Emeka walked through the awakening city with no destination in mind. He had heard traders talking about opportunities in Kano, the commercial hub of northern Nigeria, and decided to attempt the dangerous journey. With no money for transport, he planned to sneak aboard one of the long-distance trucks that carried goods between Lagos and the north. His plan went horribly wrong. While trying to hide in the back of a truck at Alaba Market, Emeka was discovered by armed robbers who were stealing the vehicle's cargo. They beat him mercilessly, stripping him of his few possessions and leaving him bleeding and broken on the roadside outside Ibadan. For hours, Emeka lay there wondering if he was cursed. He had escaped death at the drainage canal, only to face it again on a lonely highway. Yet something inside him, perhaps Mama Ngozi's prayers or Adunni's love, refused to let him surrender. For the next several weeks, Emeka wandered through the streets of Ibadan, Ogun State's largest city. His feet developed painful blisters from walking on hot asphalt, His clothes became torn and filthy. His body grew thinner as he survived on scraps from restaurant dustbins and the occasional kindness of sympathetic strangers. Sometimes he slept under the abandoned stalls of Bodija Market. Other nights he found shelter in the doorways of closed shops, always moving before dawn to avoid harassment by area boys and police. Despite his suffering, Emeka carried something many street children lacked: humility, gratitude, and unshakable faith. Whenever someone gave him food or money, no matter how small, he would bow his head and say, "Thank you, sir. God bless you abundantly." When mocked or insulted, he remained silent, choosing prayer over confrontation. When older street children tried to involve him in theft or violence, he walked away, remembering Aduni's teachings about integrity. Slowly, people in the community began to notice something special about this quiet, respectful boy. One evening, as Emeka was sweeping the front of a small phone repair shop in exchange for leftover rice and stew, the shop owner, a middle-aged Yoruba man named Baba Tund, stopped to observe him carefully. Baba Tund had owned his tiny electronics shop for 15 years, repairing phones, radios, and small appliances for the local community. He noticed Emeka's eagerness to help, his careful attention to detail while cleaning, and most importantly, his honest character. Instead of giving Emeka the usual few naira coins, Baba Tund made an offer that would change the boy's destiny. "If you're willing to learn something more valuable than money, come to my shop tomorrow morning. I'll teach you about electronics and technology." Emeka's heart leaped with joy and hope. He had always been fascinated by how things worked: radios, televisions, mobile phones, but had never had the opportunity to learn about them properly. From that day forward, Emeka worked tirelessly in Baba Tund's shop. He arrived before sunrise to clean and organize. He carried heavy equipment without complaint. He ran errands through Ibadan's chaotic traffic with dedication and speed. But whenever Baba Tund showed him the inner workings of a phone or explained how circuit boards functioned, Emeka's mind absorbed every detail like a sponge soaking up water. His natural intelligence, combined with desperate hunger for knowledge, made him learn faster than anyone expected. Weeks turned into months. Emeka taught himself to read technical manuals by candlelight in a small corner behind the shop where Baba Tund now allowed him to sleep. He studied discarded computer magazines that customers sometimes left behind. His understanding of technology grew exponentially. Soon, he was not just cleaning the shop, but actually repairing phones, fixing radios, and solving technical problems that sometimes stumped even Baba Tund. Word spread through Ibadan's electronics market about the young apprentice who could fix anything. Then came the breakthrough that would launch Emeka toward his incredible future. Using an old, broken laptop that a customer had abandoned and working late into the night for several months, Emeka began developing something extraordinary: a simple mobile application that would help small business owners in Nigeria manage their inventory and sales more efficiently. His innovation was born from observing the struggles of traders in Ibadan's markets who kept their business records on scraps of paper that often got lost or damaged. Emeka's app would allow them to track their goods, sales, and profits using their mobile phones. Local business owners began testing Emeka's creation, and word of its effectiveness spread rapidly throughout Ogun and Lagos states. Soon, small companies were calling Baba Tund's shop, asking specifically for the young genius who created the business app. Within a year, investors from Lagos were making the journey to Ibadan to meet the teenage tech prodigy living behind an electronics repair shop. They saw potential that even Emeka couldn't fully comprehend yet. His small application was just the beginning. The spark of innovation had been lit, and was about to become a fire that would transform not only Emeka's life, but the entire Nigerian tech industry. From the streets to success. But Emeka's journey is just beginning. Can you imagine going from eating scraps to impressing investors? What would you do if you discovered you had a gift that could change your life forever? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Hit that like button if Emeka's determination is inspiring you. And subscribe because next chapter reveals how this homeless boy becomes a tech genius that shocks everyone. Ring that notification bell. The transformation will blow your mind. 5 years had passed since that stormy night when Aduni found a dying boy beside a Lagos drainage canal. Emeka, now 21, had grown into something extraordinary. a tech entrepreneur whose innovations were revolutionizing how business was conducted across West Africa. His small inventory management app had evolved into a comprehensive business platform that served over 100,000 small and medium enterprises across Nigeria, Ghana, and Senegal. Major international investors were calling. His company, Nigitech Solutions, had offices in Lagos, Abuja, and Accra, employing over 300 people. But success hadn't changed Emeka's humble heart. Every morning, he still began his day with prayers of gratitude, remembering Mama Ngozi's teachings and Aduni's sacrificial love. In his luxurious Lekki Phase 1 apartment, he kept a simple framed photo of the drainage canal where Aduni had found him, a reminder how far God had brought him. His wealth had multiplied beyond his wildest dreams, but one person remained constantly in his thoughts. The banking executive who had saved his life and loved him when he had nothing to offer in return. Through discreet inquiries and private investigators, Emeka had been tracking Aduni's life from afar, waiting for the right time to reconnect. What he discovered broke his heart into 1,000 pieces. After Emeka's disappearance, Aduni's life had spiraled into a series of devastating losses. Her relationship with Tun had ended bitterly. She couldn't forgive him for driving away the boy she considered her brother. Her family, led by her mother, blamed her for bringing shame to their name by associating with street children. Worse still, Aduni had developed a mysterious kidney disease that doctors struggled to diagnose properly. Her condition deteriorated gradually, forcing her to take extended medical leave from her banking career. Without consistent income, she couldn't afford the expensive treatments her failing kidneys required. Her landlord, Mr. Adebayo, had been patient initially, but as months passed without rental payments, his sympathy turned to impatience, then to hostility. Her neighbors, who once respected her as a successful banker, now whispered about her declining circumstances with a mixture of pity and cruel satisfaction. The worst betrayal came from her own family. When Aduni became too sick to work, her mother and siblings distanced themselves, claiming they had warned her that helping street children would bring bad luck. Even her closest friends abandoned her, afraid that associating with a failure might damage their own social standing. On a particularly hot Lagos afternoon, the inevitable finally happened. Aduni knelt weakly on the dusty ground outside her apartment building in Surulere, surrounded by her meager belongings that had been thrown from her window by the landlord's agents. Her face was gone from illness, her once elegant clothes now faded and loose-fitting. The medication she could barely afford had caused her to lose significant weight, making her appear frail and much older than her 37 years. "Please, sir," she begged Mr. Adebayo, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Just give me one more week. I'm waiting for my medical insurance to be approved. I have nowhere else to go." The landlord kicked her small suitcase aside with contempt. "You think I'm running a charity? You've owed me rent for 4 months. This is business, not friendship. Get out of my compound before I call the police." Her former neighbors gathered to watch the spectacle. Some recorded with their phones, while others laughed and made cruel comments about how the mighty have fallen. Children pointed and stared while their parents shook their heads in mock sympathy. "See how God is punishing her for wasting her money on that street boy," one woman whispered loudly enough for Aduni to hear. "Now she's the one begging on the street." Aduni could barely stand. Her kidneys were failing, her body was weak, and her spirit was crushed. She had lost everything: her health, her home, her dignity, and her hope. Just when it seemed like her story had reached its tragic end, the sound of powerful engines echoed through the narrow street. A convoy of 3 black Mercedes-Benz G-Wagons pulled up in front of the crowd, their tinted windows and imposing presence immediately commanding attention and respect. The laughter and cruel comments stopped abruptly as everyone stared in shock and curiosity. From the lead vehicle stepped 2 tall, imposing men in perfectly tailored black suits and dark sunglasses, professional security personnel whose mere presence commanded respect and fear. They surveyed the crowd with trained eyes before opening the rear door of the second vehicle. The man who emerged was transformed beyond recognition, yet his eyes held the same gentle spirit that Aduni remembered. Emeka, now 21, stood tall in an impeccably tailored charcoal suit that probably cost more than most people's annual salary. His once thin frame had filled out with good nutrition and confident bearing. A Patek Philippe watch glinted on his wrist, and his shoes were handmade Italian leather. But it was his expression that mattered most. His eyes immediately found a dunny among the crowd, and they filled with tears of love, gratitude, and determination. The crowd stepped back, recognizing that someone of immense importance had arrived, but they had no idea who this powerful young man was or why he had come to their humble neighborhood. Emeka walked directly toward a dunny, ignoring the stares and whispers of the crowd. When he reached her, still kneeling among her scattered belongings, he did something that left everyone speechless. Without hesitation, he dropped to his knees in the dust beside her, his expensive suit immediately soiled by the red earth. In front of the shocked crowd of neighbors and confused landlord, he bowed his head and spoke words that would echo through that community for years to come. "My sister, you saved me when I was dying, and the world had forgotten my name. You loved me when I had nothing to offer. Today, I have come to honor you as you honored me." A dunny looked up slowly, her breath catching as recognition dawned. The successful young man kneeling before her was a 14-year-old boy she had carried from death's door 7 years earlier. "Emeka," she whispered, hardly believing her eyes. "Yes, my sister, it's me, and I have never forgotten what you did for me. The powerful reunion that will make you cry. But wait until you see what Emeka does next to the people who humiliated a dunny. Have you ever witnessed someone get the justice they deserved after being mistreated? Share your story below. Smash that like button if the scene gave you goosebumps. And subscribe because next chapter reveals Emeka's shocking plan for revenge and restoration that will leave you speechless. Don't miss how he transforms a dunny's life forever. After the incredible reunion and Emeka's transformation of a dunny's life, everything seemed perfect. Emeka had moved his beloved sister to a luxury penthouse in Banana Island, provided her with the world's best medical care, and her kidney disease was in full remission. His tech empire continued to flourish, and he had married Chioma, a beautiful medical doctor from Enugu. A dunny lived with him in joy and comfort, playing the role of both older sister and proud mother figure. Life was blissful, but then something strange began to disturb Emeka's peace. For weeks, the same haunting dream visited him every night. In his sleep, he would see a woman standing in darkness, weeping silently with tears that seemed to fall like raindrops. She never spoke, never moved closer, just stood there crying with an expression of profound sadness and longing. The woman looked familiar. Her face resembled the blurry memories he had of his beloved Mama Ngozi, his grandmother who had raised him with such love before her tragic death. But in these dreams, she appeared younger, different, yet undeniably connected to his soul. Night after night, Emeka would wake up in cold sweat, his heart racing and tears on his face. The dreams felt more real than reality itself, leaving him shaken and confused throughout his days. After 2 months of restless nights, Emeka could no longer keep this burden to himself. One evening, as he sat with Dunny and Chioma in their elegant living room overlooking Lagos Lagoon, he finally shared his torment. "Every night, the same woman appears in my dreams," Emeka said, his voice trembling slightly. "She cries continuously but never speaks. I can feel her pain, but I don't understand what she wants from me." A dunny, now fully recovered and radiating the wisdom that comes from surviving life's hardest trials, listened carefully. Chioma held her husband's hand, concerned about his obvious distress. "Dreams like this are not ordinary," a dunny said thoughtfully. "When the dead appear to us repeatedly, especially crying, it means they need something from the living. They have unfinished business or a message they're trying to deliver." "But I buried Mama Ngozi 7 years ago," Emeka replied. "I was just a child then, but I remember the funeral clearly." A dunny paused, studying Emeka's face. "Perhaps you should visit her grave. Take beautiful flowers. Introduce Chioma to her spirit, and ask directly what she needs. Sometimes the dead are trying to guide us towards something important we've missed." The idea both frightened and comforted Emeka. He had not returned to Mushin since becoming successful, partly from painful memories and partly from being too busy building his empire. "I can't do this alone," Emeka said quietly. "Will you both come with me? I need your strength and support." "Of course," Adunni smiled. "We are family. We face everything together." 2 days later, Emeka, Chioma, and Adunni prepared for the emotional journey to Mushin. They dressed in simple, respectful clothing and bought the most beautiful white lilies they could find, Mama Ngozi's favorite flowers. The drive through Lagos traffic gave Emeka time to remember the woman who had sacrificed everything to raise him. Mama Ngozi had sold Accra from 5 a.m. to 9 p.m. every day, saving every kobo to ensure he could attend school. She had loved him fiercely, teaching him prayers, values, and the importance of gratitude. As they approached Mushin, the familiar sights and sounds brought back a flood of memories, both beautiful and painful. But when they reached the area where Mama Ngozi's grave was supposed to be, Emeka's driver had to take an unexpected detour due to heavy traffic congestion. The alternative route led them through a part of Mushin that Emeka had never seen before, a section filled with small shops, roadside vendors, and the usual chaos of Lagos street life. It was then that Emeka saw something that made his blood freeze completely. Sitting beside the road in a makeshift wheelchair, begging for coins from passers-by, was a woman who looked exactly like the crying figure from his dreams. But this was not a spirit or a vision. This was a real person, flesh and blood, wearing the exact same wrapper and head tie that appeared in his nightmares. "Stop the car." Emeka screamed so loudly that his driver slammed the brakes, causing all three passengers to jolt forward. "What's wrong?" Chioma asked, alarmed by her husband's sudden panic. Emeka pointed with a shaking finger at the beggar woman beside the road. "That woman, she's the one for my dreams. She's wearing the exact same clothes." Adunni and Chioma looked where he was pointing and saw an elderly woman in a wheelchair, clearly homeless and disabled, asking for help from people walking by. Without waiting for anyone, Emeka burst out of the car and ran toward the mysterious woman, his heart pounding with a mixture of fear, hope, and desperate confusion. As he approached, he could see her face more clearly. She had a distinctive small dark mole on her left cheek, exactly the same mark he remembered on his real mother's face from his earliest childhood memories before she died. But his mother had died when he was 7 years old in that building collapse. He had attended her funeral. This couldn't be possible. The woman looked up at him with vacant, unfocused eyes. When he knelt down and looked directly into her face, she began laughing softly, the same unsettling laugh from his dreams, but showed no recognition of him whatsoever. "Mother?" Emeka whispered, his voice barely audible. "Is that you?" The woman continued staring blankly, laughing quietly, as if she was living in a different world entirely. She seemed unable to speak coherently or recognize anything around her. Emeka's mind reeled with impossible questions. Could his mother somehow be alive? Had there been a mistake at the funeral all those years ago? But if this woman was his mother, why didn't she recognize him, and what had happened to her mind? Desperate for answers, Emeka began asking people in the area about the mysterious woman. Shopkeepers, street vendors, and residents all gave him the same story. She was a homeless beggar who had been in the neighborhood for many years. No one knew her real name or where she came from. She couldn't speak clearly and seemed to suffer from mental disability. "She's been here since I was a small boy," one young man told Emeka. "We call her Mama Patience because she sits there patiently every day. But she's not right in the head." For 3 hours, Emeka questioned everyone he could find, but no one had real answers about the woman's identity or history. Finally, a teenage girl selling pure water approached them. "If you really want to know about Mama Patience," she said, "you should talk to Mama Jennifer. She's the woman who takes care of abandoned people like her. Mama Jennifer has been helping homeless people in this area for more than 20 years. Emeka's heart leaped with hope. "Please, where can I find this Mama Jennifer?" "I can take you to her," the girl offered, "but it will cost you 500 naira for my time." Without hesitation, Emeka gave her 5,000 naira. "Take us there immediately." Could this beggar woman really be Emeka's mother, who supposedly died years ago? The mystery deepens, and the truth will shock you to your core. What would you do if you discovered a family member you thought was dead was actually alive, but couldn't remember you? Share your thoughts below. Smash that like button if this twist has your mind blown. And subscribe because next chapter reveals the DNA test results and the truth that will leave you speechless. Hit that notification bell. You won't believe how this incredible story ends. The teenage girl led Emeka, Chioma, and Adunni through the winding streets of Mushin until they reached a large compound filled with small, clean buildings. Children played in the courtyard while elderly people sat under trees, talking quietly. The atmosphere was peaceful and well-organized, clearly a place where people were genuinely cared for. "Mama Jennifer," the girl called out. A strong, dignified woman in her 60s emerged from one of the buildings. She had kind eyes, graying hair neatly braided, and wore a simple but clean Ankara dress. This was Mama Jennifer, and her presence immediately commanded respect. "Good afternoon." Mama Jennifer greeted them with a warm smile. "How can I help you?" Emeka took a deep breath. "My name is Emeka." The beggar woman in the wheelchair on the main road, the one people call Mama Patience. She looks exactly like my mother who died in a building collapse 12 years ago. She's been appearing in my dreams, crying every night. Mama Jennifer studied Emeka's face carefully, and something in his features seemed to catch her attention. "Tell me about your mother's death," she asked gently. "When exactly did this happen?" 12 years ago, when I was 9 years old," Emeka replied. "There was a building collapse in Mushin. My mother was trapped inside. The rescue workers said she died instantly. My grandmother, Mama Ngozi, buried her 3 days later." Mama Jennifer's eyes widened with recognition. "This is very strange," she said slowly. "The woman you saw today, she also survived a building collapse about 12 or 13 years ago." She invited them to sit under a large mango tree in the compound center, then began sharing a story that would change everything. 13 years ago, I was at Lagos General Hospital visiting my sick sister when they brought in several victims from a building collapse in Mushin. 3 people died, but 1 woman survived, barely breathing. Her injuries were severe: broken legs, head trauma, and internal bleeding. Emeka leaned forward, his heart pounding. The tragedy was that nobody came to claim her. No family visited. No one paid her medical bills. I stayed at the hospital for 2 weeks because of my sister, and I watched this woman fight for her life completely alone. Mama Jennifer paused, her expression filled with compassion. The building collapse had damaged her brain. When she finally recovered enough to speak, she couldn't remember her name, her family, or anything about her past life. The doctor said it was severe amnesia from a head trauma. "What did you do?" Chioma asked softly. "I paid all her medical bills with my own savings. When the hospital said she could leave but had nowhere to go, I brought her here to live with me and the other people I care for. For 13 years, she has been like my own daughter." Emeka was trembling now. "But why didn't anyone from her family look for her at the hospital?" "That's what I never understood," Mama Jennifer replied. "Usually, families search everywhere for missing relatives, but no one ever came asking about a woman who survived the collapse." The pieces of a heartbreaking puzzle began to fall into place. In the chaos and confusion after the building collapse, with multiple victims and devastated families, it appeared that Emeka's grandmother, Mama Ngozi, had been told that his mother died instantly. Perhaps they buried someone else, or perhaps the authorities made a tragic mistake in their identification. Meanwhile, his real mother had survived but lost her memory and identity, spending 13 years believing she had no family, while her own son believed she was dead. "There's something else," Mama Jennifer continued. "Ever since she came to live with us, extraordinary blessings have followed her presence. Donations pour in from unexpected sources. People bring us food and supplies without being asked. It's as if God's favor surrounds her wherever she goes." Emeka knew there was only one way to discover the truth. "I need to arrange for a DNA test," he said firmly. "I need to know if this woman is really my mother." Mama Jennifer nodded. "I understand. But I must warn you, even if she is your biological mother, her mind may never fully recover. The trauma was severe, and she's been like this for 13 years. 1 week later, the DNA test results arrived at Emeka's office in Victoria Island. His hands shook as he opened the sealed envelope containing the laboratory report. The results were unmistakable. 99.99% probability that the beggar woman called Mama Patience was indeed his biological mother. When Emeka received the confirmation, he collapsed into his office chair and wept like a child. 13 years of believing his mother was dead, 13 years of grief and longing, when she had been alive all along, living as a homeless beggar just kilometers from where he had built his tech empire. Immediately, Emeka arranged for his mother to receive the best medical care money could buy. He flew her to specialized neurological centers in Germany and the United States, sparing no expense in his desperate hope for her recovery. For 6 months, Emeka practically lived at his mother's bedside in various hospitals around the world. He held her hand daily, talking to her about his life, his success, and how much he had missed her, even though she showed no signs of recognition. Chioma and Adunni supported him through this emotional journey, often joining him at the hospital to pray and fast for a miracle. They witnessed Emeka's unwavering dedication to the woman who had given him life, just as Adunni had once shown him the same unconditional love. Then, on a quiet Tuesday morning in the Rehabilitation Center in Houston, Texas, something extraordinary happened. Emeka was reading to his mother from a Yoruba storybook, the same tale she had told him as a child, when her eyes suddenly focused with clarity for the first time in 13 years. "Emeka," she whispered, her voice weak but unmistakably aware. "My son, where have you been?" The book fell from Emeka's hands as tears poured down his face. "Mama, you remember me." Slowly, like dawn breaking after the darkest night, his mother's memories began returning, not all at once, but gradually, piece by piece. She remembered his birth, his childhood, how much she had loved him, and the terrible day of the building collapse. "I kept dreaming about a boy calling my name," she said, touching his face gently. "But I couldn't remember who he was. Now I know it was you calling me back to life." The rehabilitation took several more months, but Emeka's mother, whose real name was Folklore, made remarkable progress. Her legs remained weak, requiring a wheelchair most of the time, but her mind was sharp and her spirit was strong. When they finally returned to Lagos, the first person they visited was Mama Jennifer. Both Emeka and his mother fell to their knees in gratitude before the woman who had saved Folek's life for 13 years. "You are an angel sent by God," Emeka declared, presenting Mama Jennifer with enough money to expand her charitable work to help thousands more abandoned people across Lagos State. The reunion story spread across Nigeria and international media. Television stations, newspapers, and social media platforms shared the incredible account of the tech billionaire who found his supposedly dead mother begging on the streets of Lagos. Mama Jennifer became a national hero, receiving awards from the government and recognition from international humanitarian organizations. Her small compound in Mushin was transformed into a modern facility capable of caring for hundreds of abandoned and forgotten people. 6 months after his mother's recovery, Chioma gave birth to twin boys. Emeka named them Adebayo, meaning royalty meets joy, and Emmanuel, meaning God is with us, representing the two miraculous interventions that had shaped his life, Adunni's rescue and his mother's restoration. The family now lived together in a beautiful mansion in Lekki, Emeka and Chioma with their twins, Folake in her own specially equipped wing, and Adunni as a beloved matriarch who had started it all by refusing to drive past a dying boy in the rain. Every evening, they gathered for family prayers, expressing gratitude for the chain of miracles that had brought them together. Emeka's tech empire continued flourishing, but his greatest pride was not his wealth. It was a family that love had built, sustained, and restored. 5 years later, when Emeka was invited to speak at the World Economic Forum about entrepreneurship in Africa, he ended his presentation with these words: "Success is not measured by the money you accumulate, but by the lives you impact and the love you give and receive. I am a billionaire today not because of my technology patents or my company's valuation, but because I am rich in relationships that matter more than any currency on earth." In the audience, Adunni wiped tears from her eyes as she watched the boy she had rescued from death speak to world leaders about the power of compassion. Beside her sat Folake, proud and healthy, holding her twin grandsons while Chioma beamed with pride. The story of Emeka, Adunni, Mama Jennifer, and Folake became legend in Nigeria, a reminder that every act of kindness creates ripples that can change the world in ways we never imagined. Their lives prove that no good deed is ever wasted, no act of love is ever forgotten, and sometimes the people we save end up saving us in return. Years passed, and their story continued to inspire millions across Africa and beyond. Emeka established the Adunni Foundation, providing scholarships and opportunities for homeless children throughout Nigeria. Mama Jennifer's model of caring for abandoned people was replicated in 12 African countries. Most importantly, they never forgot the lessons their journey had taught them. That family is not always about blood, that kindness is never wasted, that persistence can overcome any obstacle, and that sometimes the greatest treasures in life come disguised as the heaviest burdens. In a world that often seems cruel and unfair, their story stands as proof that love, compassion, and refusing to give up on people can create miracles that last for generations. What an incredible journey from abandonment to abundance, from despair to divine restoration. This story proves that every act of kindness plants seeds that grow into blessings beyond imagination. Which part touched your heart most? Adunni's initial rescue, Emeka's sacrifice to protect her, his rise to success, or the miraculous reunion with his mother? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever experienced or witnessed an act of kindness that changed someone's life forever? Your story can inspire someone else to choose compassion over indifference. If this incredible tale moved your heart and reminded you that miracles are possible when we refuse to give up on love, smash that like button. Your support helps us share more life-changing African stories that prove the power of hope, determination, and never stopping to help those in need. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss our inspiring stories that will restore your faith in humanity and show you that no matter how dark things seem, breakthrough is always possible. Share this story with someone who needs to believe in second chances, divine timing, and the incredible power of one person's decision to show kindness to a stranger. Sometimes the life you save with one act of compassion might be the very person who saves yours in return. What story should we tell next? Drop your suggestions in the comments. Should we share more tales of impossible comebacks, miraculous family reunions, or everyday heroes who change the world one act of kindness at a time? Remember, you never know which small act of love today might become someone else's miracle tomorrow. Keep showing kindness, keep believing in people, and keep watching for the extraordinary moments when God uses ordinary compassion to create extraordinary outcomes. Until next time, this is your reminder that every person you meet is fighting battles you know nothing about, and sometimes your kindness might be the very thing that saved their life and transforms your own. God bless, and see you in the next incredible story.